Hello, church. I hope that your week is off to a good start. I was going through my Instagram feed a little bit earlier, and in my feed I have some things. They're not people I follow, but just hashtags, different topics and subjects and things like that. And one of the interests that I have is fountain pens, and so there's a fountain pen brand that, if anybody posts about that, it comes up in my feed. And what's cool about that is that it's not like sometimes it's ads for the pen, but most of the time it is people with various skills. And the ones that I really like are some people that just have tremendous artistic skill. I really wish that I had gotten the drawing gene, if there is such a thing. Certainly some people in my family have it. My mom has it, sisters have it, that sort of thing. My daughters have it, but I don't have it. My dad could draw. I've seen some of his drawings of cars when he was a kid. Somehow, I missed out on the whole thing. But I was going through the feed, and I saw this picture by a very talented artist, and it's two of my favorite things, maybe three of my favorite things. I love art and sketches. My favorite artist is Rembrandt. I love his ability to make things look just absolutely realistic. His work with light and color and those things, I think that's fascinating. And people who can do sketches they're just hyper accurate. I love that, and that they can do it freehand and in ink really impresses me. And this drawing impressed me today. And so then I had a post-it note, and I had a pencil because I'm not doodling in ink. But I thought, I would try it. And so I decided I would draw the same car. Now mine is nothing like what the artist drew. Mine has lots of flaws when I look, but you get the general outline of the general. It's better than a stick figure, which is my normal work, but there are a lot of flaws. And that's actually what I want to talk to you about, is the fact that, we have a lot of flaws when we try to imitate sometimes. One of my favorite passages is Ephesians chapter 5, and it reads, "Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children, and walk in love as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." That's a big order, isn't it? Be imitators of God in his holiness and his love and his kindness and his purity. Paul will go on and include all those things in the ways that we should imitate God. And honestly, I find imitation of God intimidating. I find that every bit as intimidating as, bothering to show you what I did, because I look at this and I see flaws. I see everything that is missing or wrong or not done as well as that other artist, or compared to the real car, which should be a Citroen Traction Avant, which is a really cool car, but mine somehow looks more like a post-war Toyo Pet from Japan, which I'm going to blame the Mitsubishi pencil that I used to draw. No, that's my lack of skill. It's easy for me to look at this and to see where it could have been better, even though it's better than the last thing I drew. And that's the problem. We so often look at the way that we are trying to imitate Christ, and we see our flaws. We look at other people and we see theirs. They look at us and they see ours. And then we look at this passage and we say, how am I even supposed to try that? How am I even supposed to get there? And we just don't even try. The reason I pushed myself to do this little sketch on a Post-it note was to kind of overcome that fear. That's one of the fears that we have in life, is just the things that we don't know how to do that well. We either try to learn or we stay in fear and we don't do it. And that's the sure way to fail, by not trying. At least if we try, we can get partway there, and in getting partway there, we learn what we need to imitate and where we need to grow. I can look at this and tell you, okay, there are things, I can see a dozen things when I look at it that I need to learn how to do that better. But see, that's actually a cool thing about life. We can look at something and say, I need to learn how to do that better. And then we can look at the work of someone who already does it better and learn from them. Imitation is a great way to learn. And it's better than, I could look up a book at the library and figure out how I could draw this better and find methods and things like that, right? I could stare at pictures of the real car and hope that somehow by osmosis I might figure out, that doesn't work, by the way, figure out how to do that better. Or I could talk to somebody and say, hey, here's where I am. I want to learn what you've clearly already accomplished. How do I get there? And that is the Scriptures when it comes to life and imitating God. We go to God's Word and we look at Jesus in the Gospels. We look at those men and women, heroes of the faith, and we look at what they did and how they lived and what they accomplished. And we don't just sit back and go, I'll never be that good, right? Because then, I'm stuck in my old doodles. That didn't sound quite right, but you know what I mean. Instead, we look at it and we say, what were they doing? How were they living? How did Jesus handle difficult times? How did Jesus handle difficult people? How did he handle tired, overworked, and underappreciated? Because he certainly was. And then you learn from him how to live better by listening, by watching, and then finally by imitating. The cool thing about this in Ephesians chapter 5 is that Paul then goes on from there and starts to give us some of those hints. He talks about all kinds of things, about everything from moral character in the rest of chapter 5 to trusting in the resurrection of Christ to how we treat our spouses, husbands loving wives, wives loving their husbands, parents raising their kids, and children, how to obey parents. And then he gets into the full armor of God by chapter 6, and he tells us, he doesn't just tell us, imitate God. He then tells us, and here's how that looks. A little more shading here, a little correction of the line there, walking a little bit better here. And he helps us to see that it's possible. I could look at my little sketch here and say it's impossible that I would ever get anywhere near as good as that drawing I showed you at the first. And maybe I will and maybe I won't. But the greatness and the grace is in the trying. So how about this week, let's give it a shot. Let's get out there and in every way that we can, imitate Christ, knowing that there will be times where we don't do it as well as we could, but also knowing that there will be times where God, by His grace, is going to guide us, teach us, and help us to absolutely knock it out of the park. Because that is what the grace of God can do when you try. God bless you and have a good night.